Welcome to Citizens of Earth, podcast dedicated to life stories of travelers, expats, immigrants, and about impact that traveling experience makes on our worldview and on our life. Hello everyone, you're listening to Citizens of Earth. My name is Alex, and today we have a very interesting guest. She's originally from France, but she used to live and work in Poland, in Australia, in Mexico, and finally in USA. So our guest has very rich experience of adapting to different cultural environments. Hello, Helene.
Hello, I'm Helene. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Great.
Good to hear. Can you please tell us how did you start to travel?
Yeah, so after I graduated from my business school, I met a few students around me and coworkers who had been living and traveling abroad. And I didn't know it was even possible to do that. But in France, there is a specific program where you can volunteer for the government in a French company somewhere in the world. It's called VIE. And so I started to look more information about that program, and I found that it's possible for me to do for up to a year. So I started to look for job opportunities abroad. And I didn't know where to look. Like, I could look in Africa, I could look in South America, everywhere. But one of my best friends, she just went to Czech Republic, and one of my coworkers had been in Hungary for work, and so I started to have interest in Eastern Europe, and I found a job offer to go to Poland for a year. So I really wanted to go, but at the same time I really was afraid. I was so afraid.
Was it hard for you to just dive in this adventure where you hesitated a lot?
So what happened is that I was so scared to do it that I asked this company who wanted to hire me a lot of requirements. I asked for a car, I asked for them to pay for my flat, I asked them to pay for plane tickets to go home in France during the vacation, all of that. And in my mind I was like, they're gonna say no and then I don't need to go. But they emailed back saying that yeah, no problem, we pay for everything. And then I was like, wow, that's great, like I'm gonna go and live abroad and the company is just gonna like pay for everything and it's just good money and good experience. So originally the job offer was for a year, but it seemed way too long for me. I was scared to leave, and so I asked if we could reduce my mission for 9 months instead of a year. So yeah, I was instead of extending it, I wanted to like make the contract shorter. And so yeah, that's how I started to travel abroad.
Was it hard to adapt to foreign environment because language is obviously completely different?
So as soon as I signed out the paper that I'm gonna go work in Poland, I started to Google the town where I was going to live. And it's almost no information because it was such a small town. I don't remember how many people living there, but like super small. And like maybe 3 restaurants, and they're not even a theater, a cinema, and like it's just like super small. And no big town around, and no really any infrastructure to go to a bigger city because the roads were very small, basically no train, nothing. And so I started to think, oh my god, maybe people over there are not gonna be speaking English, so I need to learn some Polish. And so I found some CD to practice the language, and I remember I spent nights and nights. I was in my apartment in France and I spent the evening talking to myself and repeating what the CD was saying. Dzień dobry, dzień dobry, dzień dobry. Dziękuję. Trochę mówię po polsku. And so I was just like, it's funny, my mom was listening to me and she said, is it Japanese? I'm like, no. I was like I was just like trying to figure the language out. And what's funny is that when I arrived in Poland, I started to talk Polish to my coworkers, and my accent, my pronunciation was so good when I was saying dzień dobry, jak się masz, that they continued talking to me in Polish, and I had no idea what they were saying. I was just super good at the basic sentences. So yeah, it was interesting to learn a new language because I know I need to use it. You know, you go to school and you learn English, you learn Spanish because you're in class. And then you don't know if one day you're really gonna need to use it, you know. But that was definitely a tool. Like I was like, okay, I'm gonna live somewhere. I had no idea of the language, but I need to learn it as a tool to be able to live there. So that was a completely different experience of learning a new language.
Did you have moments of doubt when you thought that maybe you want to go back to France?
I think, yeah, I guess the first few months you just don't have no time to even think about going back because you just like trying to figure everything out, like your life basically, and where to buy your food, and trying to make contact with people and visiting around. So I didn't feel like I was missing home. And then when I started to feel like I wanted to leave, I didn't want to live back home. I wanted to live to another country. I wanted to continue this experience because I just loved it so much. So
what particularly did you love so much?
I just loved that I was thrown in a context where I had to discover what the rules are and integrate and survive, and everything was so new and refreshing. Every conversation I had was so interesting. When I was managing to have a conversation in Polish with my neighbor after 8 months of struggling, I was so proud, and all I told her is, hey, how is your day going? How are your kids today? Is everything good? And she replied to me, and we had like 3 minutes conversation, and that was like, it felt so rewarding that finally I managed to have a conversation. I don't know. All of it, I think it's very hard, but very rewarding, yeah.
And your second country, I believe, was Australia?
Yeah, so what happened is that when I was in Poland, I was done with my projects, and the company I was working with, they were talking about moving me to maybe Germany to work in Frankfurt. And I was really sad to leave Poland because I really loved it there. But there was really no opportunity for me, especially in that little town. So I started to decide to look for another job, but not in Germany. I didn't really like learning German at school, and I didn't feel like I was excited to move there. So I found a job offer in Australia, and it was hard for me to get it, but I managed to go in good conditions, and I went to Melbourne.
And again, it was foreign language for the second time.
Yeah, so the big difference is that I was speaking English at my job in Poland, but I was speaking English with Polish people. Mm-hmm. So their English, my English, same, basic, slow, with a strong accent, you know, and everybody's struggling and everybody's trying to make themselves understood. And moving to Australia, everybody's fluent in English. I'm the one who has to keep up with the conversation, and you go to places where it's very noisy and people speak very fast. You're at work in a big meeting and everybody is excited about the topic, and you need to follow what's going on, you know. So I had to learn how to speak English with English-speaking people, and that was a big difference compared to Poland. Definitely a big difference.
It was harder?
Well, yeah, completely. Like, I felt like level 2, you know. Okay, level 1, basic Polish, basic English, surviving. Level 2, thrown in like big city, Melbourne, where things are very modern. I remember I was washing my hands at some public toilet, and then there was this like place where you need to dry your hands. There was a TV and this stuff, and there was like some kind of commercial talking to me at the same time, and that was back in 2007, 2008. So Like it was so super modern and well organized city, and people are all like coming from a lot of different countries, but they are all very fluent in English.
So how long did you stay there?
I stayed there for 6 months, and at the end of the 6 months, basically my company at that time was starting a project in Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah. And I knew a little Spanish, and I told them, I want to do this project. And they told me, well, do you speak Spanish? And I'm like, not yet, just give me a month or two and I can manage, no problem. So here, once again, I was in Melbourne and looking for my next country, finding information on internet, and then finding Spanish people in Melbourne to start learning Spanish so that I can, in 2 months, be operational for my new project in Mexico.
How was the Mexico comparing to Australia and Poland?
Well, it's completely different, especially because being in Mexico was very different, but the biggest difference for me is that I was in the desert. So I was in the desert between Mexico and California. I was with mountains around me in Baja California, between the bay and the Pacific Ocean. And no trees, nothing, just like super, super, super hot. And basically you go to the mall and you step outside of your car and it feels like someone is hitting your head because it's so hot. And you run until you're inside the mall because there is like AC inside the mall so you can be fresh. So yeah, I think the fact that it was desert was a big difference for me compared to the other countries. And learning Spanish and being able to speak Spanish was great because all my life I was just listening to Spanish music and wishing I could understand the lyrics. And it was a fantasy for me to be able to hear people speaking in Spanish and understand.
Your dream came true?
Yeah, definitely. I just learned so fast because I feel like I knew Spanish before I learned it, you know? It's just like, sometimes I didn't even know the translation and I was just trying to see if I can figure it out, and most of the time I could. So I just feel like maybe it's years of listening to Spanish music. Finally, even if I didn't understand the words, they were inside me and they just came out when I needed to speak them. I don't know.
How was the people?
The people were really nice. They were very... not modern. I mean, where I was in Mexico, it was big difference compared to Australia. Australia is a very new country with very big cities and everything is super organized. Transportation, everything is like super clean and organized. Mexico, where I arrived, I don't know every city in Mexico, but where I was, it feels like people have to do their own business. You know, they start their own business, they start their own restaurant, but it feels like it's, I don't know, we have a word for it in French. It's when you have to se débrouiller, you know, we give you like a few tools and you have to make it, you know, you just figure your way. And I feel like people do that more over there. So I guess they are more creative and also very humble but proud at the same time. They really like to celebrate and invite all of their neighbors to their big parties. So yeah. No, the people were really nice too.
Then after Mexico you moved to US, right?
Yeah, so during the time that I was in Mexico, my company headquarters in California were preparing my visa. And so basically, once again, I had to leave a country. You know, it's very scary to move somewhere, but it's very scary to leave that place because you make connection and you make friends, you went to places, but in 6 months you feel like there is so much more that you didn't have time to discover, and you feel like you have to leave, you know. And it's super sad because what are the chances that I'm gonna go back to Poland? What are the chances I'm gonna go back to Melbourne? And maybe when I go back there, life has changed, you know. So it's not like when you change the city in your country where you can always go back when you travel the world like this, you know that there is very little chance that you will be able to go back. So it's a real goodbye, you know. But so I moved to California in a suburb 2 hours away from San Francisco.
You moved from country to country so many times. Was you excited every time you were moving to your next country, or you just wished to stop at some point?
So until I moved to the US, I was very excited. And when I was in the US, I started to have opportunities, maybe to go to another country. And I never even consider it. And, you know, I think...
Why? What changed? Because before you took every opportunity.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of, okay, I've done it before and now I need to stay here. And instead of running after something, just sitting and looking, what have I done? And also, the country seemed like very warm and friendly, and I like that about the US, California at least. But life was also very easy. Like, everything is easy. Shops are open on Saturday, Sunday. If you want to install your internet line, you just have to dial a phone number. Like, it feels like
daily problems.
Daily problems are, it's almost like not happening. I don't know, I feel like in the past I was really always at some point starting to Google where else I could live. Mm-hmm. And this time I just didn't do it. And I don't really know why, but I never felt the need to Google where else I wanted to live. I was not excited to go somewhere else. And I was not excited either to go back home.
How did you realize that you do want to stay?
To stay?
Do you remember the particular moment when you have this first thought that maybe I want to stay?
Yeah, for so long. I mean, for the first 2 years, I think my coworkers were like, "Oh, you should like invest your money in a 401k. You should do this, that." And I was like, "I'm not gonna do that. I don't even know how long I'm gonna stay here." So it definitely took time for me to get there. But I remember one day I was flying back from France to San Francisco, and I was at the airport, and this border office guy asked me for my passport, and he asked me, "Why are you going to San Francisco?" And I say, "That's where I live." And he said, "Do you have a green card or are you a citizen?" And I said, "No, I just have a work visa." He's like, "Well, you don't live in the US. You just have a temporary visa and you're a temporary worker. But this is not your country. Okay, have a good day." And I started to cry. I felt like I was rejected from my country. I was thinking, man, I've been here for 2 years. I met friends. I have the same job where I improved in my job. I've been learning all of those details about American culture, learning about politicians, learning about what things people like and don't like, and different holidays of the years. I've been learning all of that, and someone is telling me I don't live here. I live here, I belong here, you know? And I think that's when it all shifted, that I really felt when I was flying back from France to the US that I was flying back home. Even more than when I was flying back to France.
Okay, so border officer helped you to realize where your home is, obviously. And I'm curious, all these countries, all these new experiences, how did it change your personality? What is the difference between today's Helene and Helene before her first travel?
Yeah, I think there are two things. So one is that everywhere I went, I always met one or two people that I really loved their personality and some aspect of them, or how they handled the problem, or how they were always smiling. And I just loved something about them, and I decided to keep it with me when I left. And I basically was like, okay, I'm leaving Poland, but I really liked how this person was. And so I'm gonna keep it with me. And it's funny because I can see myself doing stuff sometimes where I'm like, oh my god, I was totally doing this thing my friend was doing when I was in Australia. So in a way, I feel like since you meet people and you leave them, you just keep stuff that you learn and you can kind of use them later where nobody knows this person. And it's so. And the second thing is also, I remember I wanted to be like, color my hair to be blonde, have blonde hair, you know. I really liked the look of being blonde, and then I go to Poland where a lot of women have very light hair and light color of eyes, and I thought it was beautiful. But most of them were going to these tanning places to get the dark skin and get the dark hair. And talking with them, I understand that the idea of beauty was Penelope Cruz or some Latina girl, you know. And I thought, oh my god, it's funny, like they are beautiful and they want to look like a Latina. And then I go to Mexico and I meet girls that spend time and time researching a product to lighten the color of their skin, to look like whiter, and to change the color of their hair to have lighter hair. And I was like, that's incredible. They want to look like a Polish woman, and Polish women want to look like a Mexican one. And that's when I realized that it doesn't make any sense, and and I should just accept myself, because all the beauty standards I'm seeing when I'm moving around the world, they are all made up stuff, and people just want to be what they think is rare and uncommon. And so I decided to stop caring about that stuff.
That's very interesting. And before we end, what would be your advice for people who want to hit the road to try to live in a new country but hesitating?
My advice would be to think in terms of what attracts them, like which country attracts them. Because I think, you know, you always have a connection to a country or a culture. Maybe you've been watching a lot of Japanese movies, or you love Portuguese songs, or maybe you love Italian food, you know. And I think when you have a connection like that, you need to go and try to dive in that culture. So that would be my first advice. Like, you attracted to a country or a culture and you feel like you would love to know more and see how your life would be over there. I think
go and try.
Yeah, go and try. And also, it's not like it's a failure if it doesn't work. It's an experience. So not being scared that it was not good for you, because you will be always happy that you've been trying and discovering a new side of yourself in that particular culture you love so much. I mean, I'm this kind of person who will always see the positive aspect of everything. So to me, a lot of trouble when you're traveling would be a funny story to tell your friends when you come back. So no big deal.
Thank you, Helene, for being today with us. It was really interesting interview. You were listening to Citizens of Earth podcast. My name is Alex. Check out our podcast feed on podmaniac.com, and I hope I see you next time.